We'll just get into this stuff because this is from CBS News. Minneapolis approves historic $27 million settlement with George Floyd's family. They say the city council voted 13-0 to approve the settlement, which directs $500,000 to be used to benefit the George Floyd Memorial Site at 38th and Chicago. Do you know what that means? I'm going to build the suspense on y'all for a minute.
13-0, really?
This past weekend.
Yeah.
The George Floyd Memorial Site, which is an autonomous zone, someone was shot and killed.
Yeah.
The city has just announced they are going to fund this Antifa autonomous zone to the tune of $500,000. Mm-hmm. That's the degree to which this insanity. I'm sorry, James, you may say that you're a little pessimistic, but boy, am I getting pessimistic on this one. $27 million in a civil settlement to the family. Look, I'm upset the guy died. I don't like it when anybody dies. $27 million, historic. Why? Because the terror worked.
That's right.
The burning down the cities, it worked.
That's right. So what are you going to see? More fire.
Yep.
Yeah, they're giving $500,000 to these people.
Yeah.
Now, the crazy thing, too, is Chauvin is still on trial. And so you have these jurors who are supposed to be coming in and being asked if they can remain impartial. And now they're going to be told, you know, in the civil case, they've already won. Clearly, he must be guilty of something the city's agreed to settle. How can this guy get a fair trial?
O.J. Simpson lost a civil case.
Wasn't it?
I think the civil case was after the criminal case, though, in his case. It's funny phrasing. I don't know the history of civil case, criminal case, the adjunctives of it. Like, is there precedent for doing a civil case first, finding them?
I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea. I do know that, this was a wrongful death and that he's being tried for murder 1, right?
No, murder 2, 3, and manslaughter.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, who knows then? Because the city is sort of admitting fault here.
Yep.
And
I can't see that.
I don't see how you. Yeah, I mean,
I guess theoretically, maybe the judge will be like, no, you've got to separate that. And maybe when it comes to the defense, they'll say a settlement is not an admission of guilt. The city just simply thought paying out would be less expensive than the damage. And he might actually say the fact the city thought $27 million was cheaper than fighting the suit shows what they really feared was the riots from the extremists who are trying to destroy the city.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's what the whole gig is, an extortion gig. I get that there's there's the passion. People are locked down. I don't want to deny what was the saying we had to endure? It was a quote from Martin Luther King, but I felt like it was taken a bit out of context, which was that a riot is the voice of the unheard or something like that. And I get it. People were locked down for months. People are kind of out of their minds looking for something to do. There's this flashpoint. Everything goes crazy. But it's an extortion gig. The whole because the theory underlying it, if we look at critical race theory, is an extortion gig. It works on public relations there, not riots. But it also defends things like looting. There was that book, Defense of Looting, that's all rooted in critical race theory and all this crazy stuff.
That was written about Ferguson. I was in Ferguson, and when that article came out, I threw up in my mouth a little bit. It was like reading that was a combination of several different, what's the right word for this? Like violations of ethics. The first was to see the people desperately defending their town, their neighborhood from these violent rioters and looters who are exploiting them, to see the manipulation and fake news and the corruption of the media. It was like all at once. And I was like, oh, in Ferguson, the kids who lived there, so some young men linked arms around the convenience store, and they were trying to defend the businesses from the looters who came from out of town to exploit and steal and burn things down because they thought it was funny and they didn't care. And then along comes these ultra woke white progressives from the suburbs who have no idea what it's like to live in poverty, cheering on the criminals who invaded this neighborhood and attacked the poor, marginalized people who lived there. And I witnessed it.
That's in Ferguson, right?
That was in Ferguson.
Okay, yeah. So what happened in Minneapolis is, the person who's now the vice president coming out and saying this needs to continue. Let's bail them all out of jail. Here's a link to the fund.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And people thought that if she got elected, this is true, that she was the tough cop, the top cop, and she was going to come and put an end to this Antifa stuff, this violence. And I remember talking to some people I know in the Chicago suburbs. They were talking about why they were supporting Biden. And I was like, don't you think that under Biden, these extremists are emboldened and the riots are going to get worse? And there were people who said, dude, Kamala was locking up innocent people. Pretty sure she's going to go nuts. And I was like, dude, she tried bailing these people out. She solicited funds to get them out of jail. And what's happening now? They set the Mark O. Hatfield courthouse on fire again in Portland.
That's right. Yeah. And speaking of Portland, I remember talking to some folks that I'm friends with in Portland, and their big concern going into the election, these are people who are lifelong Democrats or progressives or leftists or whatever, as Portland would do. And their concern was, well, our city isn't protecting us. Our state isn't protecting us. You look at this, Ted Wheeler, the mayor. You look at, was it Kim Brown? Is that her name, the governor of Oregon? Maybe I've got Kim wrong, but I think that's right. And then the last line of defense, it's like Trump. And, he can't, his hands are tied. He can't even send in like federal troops or the National Guard or anything. And then their concern was, if Biden and Harris win, now every level of government, whether city, state, or federal, is going to do nothing to protect the city of Portland. And now, like you said, it was a federal courthouse was on fire with people inside, right? It was set on fire with people inside.
Law enforcement. And they had to rush out and try to put the fire out.
Yeah.
Do you think they should have sent the feds in? That Trump should have sent the feds in?
I mean, it's complicated, right? There was the way that Antifa works, and a lot of people don't understand this. And if you say, "Oh, it's Black Lives Matter," when it's not Antifa, sometimes it is. There's this wing of Black Lives Matter that I think is called Black Lives Matter Revolution, but we could look that up. That's the activist wing, the paramilitary ring. The way that they work is what's called inducing mid-level violence. A lot of people don't understand that there are levels of violence or how violence works. And what mid-level violence is that kid, the brothers, right, in the back of the car. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And what they want is you to either back down and show weakness or to overreact. And so we were referring to this over the summer as the Trump trap, is that if he sent in federal troops, he's a fascist. He's sending in federal troops on American citizens. That was the narrative was there. This whole game is driving narratives. We see this with what's happening in Minneapolis now. We see it there. The entire operation of what's happening is a narrative-driven maneuver where you have a collusion between big media, the Democratic Party, to seize power. And the narrative is the thing. So the game was to put Trump in a lose-lose situation. Oh, he's too weak. He didn't do anything to protect anybody. He didn't do anything. But if he had done, the narrative would have flipped the other way. Oh, he's a fascist. See, we've been telling you for 4 years. We've been conditioning you for 4 years. Trump's a fascist. He's going to seize power. He's going to take over everything. And now he's sending federal troops against American citizens. That's exactly what would have happened. So his hands were tied. From what I understand, he was also told, by military brass, if you make this order, we won't follow it. And so what's he going to do? Then he gets put in the same trap now with these other people. He has to force them or back down and look weak. And the same narratives are going to be able to get spun out of this. And this is what people don't understand. And I don't want to make this like left, right, or whatever, but the radical left understands narrative and political warfare, and nobody else does. And so that's how they keep catching everybody with their pants down. Political warfare is the most important concept you've never heard of. And political warfare, our foreign adversaries reported a few decades ago, I think China and Russia both, had remarked that the American ability, because we rely so much on physical warfare, we have such high technology, we have badass jets, the whole thing, we don't even think about political warfare anymore. They said that it's so degraded that it might as well not exist. And this is what we're losing right now is political warfare. And the radical left is trained, they're excellent at it, they think about it constantly, and they put people in these traps, these mid-level violence traps.
We're particularly susceptible to it because this country is classically liberal, and I know a lot of people need to understand what that means. Classically liberal. It doesn't mean conservative or liberal in the colloquial sense. It means believing in freedom and government by the people, things like that. So this country is a constitutional republic with philosophically liberal values. Liberal as a term seems to have just gradually evolved to mean, I guess, Democrat. So,
but it was like John Locke that invented.
Right. Classical liberalism is much more similar to like center-right libertarianism, if anything. And then social liberalism is the civil rights kind of era, people who believed in free speech and respect for people and everything like that. So that came about. But those of us who occupy this like moderate libertarian space, kind of left, kind of right, maybe depending on who you are, we're playing fair, and we believe in respecting the rights and speech of our opponents. And the problem then is, I routinely stand up and defend leftists who get censored. They gloat and laugh when it's us getting censored.
That's right.
Or I will absolutely, and I did, defend Taylor Lorenz in the wake of this, criticism of her, because this woman from the New York Times put out a tweet saying that her life was literally destroyed by harassment. I saw a tweet and I thought it was a silly thing to say, but I'm not going to be bothered by yelling at someone on Twitter simply because I thought something they said was silly. Otherwise, my whole day would be nothing but that. Well, she started getting a lot of criticism, and I just ultimately said, look, I get it. If you want to criticize the idea and the institution, please do so. But, getting into the weeds and getting into the drama, I think, is a waste of our time. I absolutely tweeted in her defense multiple times, made videos in her defense, because I don't like the idea of people piling on and engaging in this culture war drama. And then not only, I won't go into details, but now there's literally a harassment campaign being promoted by large, powerful institutions, putting insane and ridiculous lies out about me, talking about where I live and my home, and absolutely engaging in a targeted harassment campaign. And they're all laughing about it. They're all laughing about it. So I can stand on principle and say, like, let's not do this, guys. And then what happens then is the people on, the anti, woke side, the people who believe in freedom say it's warfare and we have no choice. They started it. That's the problem. I believe in a principle, and if my principles are we don't do these tactics, then I am at an extreme disadvantage where I can sit back and turn the other cheek when they do these things to me, to my family, to my friends. But if we dare speak up, Glenn Greenwald points this out, they will come for you and they will use the weight of all of these institutions to destroy you. And even when I still defend them, they don't care. They are bad people.
No, this is why I say that. I've written an article. I think I did a podcast, both of these things that I actually called wokeness, but it could be radical leftism in general, or even any certain totalitarian strain. I called it radical left wokeness in particular. I called it a virus on the liberal body politic. It takes advantage of certain liberal cultural and ethical mores specifically to do exactly as you just described, to absolutely neuter the host ability to defend itself. Your immune system's not there. I like to actually kind of say, frankly, I have kind of gotten hard about cancel culture. And my belief there is that the asymmetry is the story. It's no longer, it's not culture war. There's a power grab happening. I'm not quite as far as the right who are like, it's war, we have to act like war, but the asymmetry is the story. And so for me, until we adopt an attitude, if someone wants to cancel you, cancel them first 4 or 5 times, because it won't take that many. Till there is a realization that this is a, mutually assured destruction, that this horrific thing's going to continue. But what it requires is a suspension of one's principles as a classical liberal, which puts us in that decision dilemma yet again. And also, by the way, I don't know if it's called
They win.
Is it GFAZ? Is that the George Floyd Autonomous Zone? Is that what
I
they
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was writing
listen.
down.
But no, that's the same thing though, right? Just wanted to point out, since we don't lose it, that's also mid-level violence, right? And the city has decided to show weakness by giving them half a million dollars. So their other option, of course, is to send in the troops and just bulldoze this thing.
They won't do it. Apparently, it's been there for like 9 months. They put in $500,000 now as part of this settlement, and someone just died there recently, and the police couldn't get in to help this person. So I'll say this now. My opinion very much changed in the autonomous zones. I'm here for it. You know what? Roll with it. I left these cities. It's funny. I'm in the Philadelphia area previously, and I was like, there's too many riots, and they crossed the bridge, and they're coming into these neighborhoods. So I think it's time to start considering not being in these cities, because it's not about Antifa. It's not about Black Lives Matter. It's just about opportunistic violence when things start, going crazy. And we had a year of riots. Well, sure enough, I think it was like a week after we didn't move out officially. We started the process and came down to the new location. Riots broke out, mass shootings. There was like a hostage situation. And I'm like, there you go, man. I mean, homicides are on the rise.
Everywhere.
And so I think people need to realize, I think the last group of people I'm worried about in a big city is people like Antifa. I mean, a lot of these people are like suburban, privileged, scrawny, angsty youths. I really don't care. My bigger concern, in Philadelphia, there was a bunch of armed dudes, like repeat offender criminals, occupying buildings and shooting at cops. And you've got that kind of crime. You've got the homicide skyrocketing. You've got the gun crime skyrocketing. You've got just theft across the board, even petty theft in these crimes in a lot of these cities, partly due to the demoralization of the police, the defunding of the police.
Hold on. Nobody knows why it's happening.
So
that's what I learned on the
media.
Yeah, nobody knows. Last summer it was because it was summer, and in the winter maybe it was because it was winter. But I don't know. But nobody knows.
Yeah, they're like, you see, in the summer, it's warm, giving more people the opportunity to go out, and more people outside means more crime will happen.
Right.
In
and
the
maybe
winter,
they're hungry
it's
or
darker.
need more bread. Right.
And in the winter, it's darker, which means a more opportunity to commit crime.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the springtime, as the weather starts getting nicer, people want to go back outside again. So then crime it just exponentially increases nonstop. So it's nothing to do with defunding the police, nothing to do with demoralization of police. Just happenstance. Just
nothing to do
magic.
with telling them to stand down. Nothing to do with DAs letting people off if they get arrested. Nothing to do. Nothing to do
with the city of Minneapolis putting $500,000 into an Antifa autonomous zone. Hey, we're at that point now where it's like the autonomous zone has official government sanction, in this place, and it's remarkable. So, where are the conservative or right wing autonomous zones? Because I mean this
right
seriously.
here in this house.
I was going to say,
Not really.
No,
I'm talking about
not really.
not at all. What
Until we
I'm
grow a
specifically talking about was when are we going to start seeing right wing dudes standing in the road, the U.S. state highway or whatever that leads into a small town of a few thousand people,
city blocks and
just
stuff.
doing checkpoints. They did this in the Pacific Northwest when the fires kept starting, and this is one of the things Joe Rogan. One of the things I'm disappointed with him about is that he had said on his show, he was wrong, he made a mistake, that, Antifa was going around starting these fires. He then made an apology where he said, none of it was true, it's not happening. The issue was that there was a guy who was like a leftist who was caught starting the fires. And there were other people, many, who were not politically affiliated, who were just crazy firebug types. So you need to explain to people, when these photos came out showing right-wing dudes with signs saying, checkpoint, and then they were explaining people are starting fires, the media made it seem like conspiracy crackpots were scared of Antifa. Sure, some of them were. There was one story about a leftist who got arrested. But a lot of them were regular people I don't care who they are or what their affiliation is. They started fires. And there was a handful of people across the West Coast that did. So, Joe's apology kind of just got it wrong. But it's fine. I don't think it was intentional. But there are a lot of people on the left that absolutely engage in ongoing and sustained violence. And over the past year, it's only worked. So my point is...
And they're opportunistic to that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
When are we going to see, in response to these autonomous zones, right-wing groups just setting up in their communities? There was a viral video where, an Antifa group went into a neighborhood in Colorado, and a bunch of regular guys just chased them out. And did not go well for those guys because actual working class union boys, they're not scrawny suburbanite privileged white kids. No, they're men who went out and were basically welcome to my neighborhood. And the Antifa people ran off. So I'm wondering if the city's going to give $500,000 to benefit the George Floyd Memorial site at 30th in Chicago, which has become an autonomous zone lockdown where black-clad individuals threaten journalists and refuse to let police in, and the police haven't been in months, apparently. When do we see conservatives have a peaceful autonomous zone where they set up checkpoints?
I mean, you know the answer to that question.
Never.
And the answer is because the left owns the political warfare, like I just said. It's the most important concept you've never heard of. And why? What's going to happen? Well, you know what the media is going to do with it immediately. It could be as peaceful as peaceful. It could be literally doing nothing but growing flowers, feeding the hungry, bringing out whatever the most pro-social thing you can possibly imagine is. And it's going to be a crazy right-wing militia group of KKK, blah, 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 is what they're going to say about it. And it's going to be white supremacist, white supremacist, white supremacist. And because those words, those ideas, it's not just that they have power, because that's one thing. It's actually that they stick. Like the word conservative, as somebody who is never identified as one, has been tainted almost to the point of absolute, taint. It's just completely poisoned. And so conservatives seem to understand this. I put this on Twitter a while back, and I said that the meme is mightier than the AR-15. And a bunch of gun guys were like, "I'll show you mine." And I'm like, shut up.
I don't care.
It's shut up. It's not true. The only AR-15 rounds that were fired, I don't know how many actually fired, but 3 hit people from Kyle Rittenhouse.
No, right, yeah, he had 223 rounds.
Yeah, so the only rounds that came out of an AR-15 were those, all summer, or thereabouts, approximately. And why? Because every law-abiding gun-owning citizen knew that the second somebody opened fire, guns are gone, or the bid to take guns is going to start. And they knew the meme right. of gun-toting right-wingers. And look what happened to Kyle. That was brutal.
Yep.
The meme was actually more powerful. An AR-15 that you can't fire because you know it's going to get turned against you in the narrative war, and you're going to lose that political war over it. that meme is more powerful than the gun.
It's an ancient thought. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah, that's what I was riffing.
Yeah.
It's
But
like
it's an ancient
I
idea.
didn't,
But listen.
I didn't quite think of that one myself.
I'll tell you what the real divide is, right? So you've always been like a fairly liberal person.
Yeah.
I have as well.
Yeah.
And Ian, I think you are pretty like.
I used to be super liberal.
I mean,
Now I'm more
super
middle.
liberal.
Like free everyone, no gun. We don't need weapons. Everything can be fine. Like just pie in the sky.
Borders
when
are
I-
evil.
when I was-
Let everyone in. We can help everyone. Like
Yay.
all the time. Crazy.
When I was younger, I was like anarcho-punk skateboarder. You know, I could play "Baby I'm an Anarchist" on the guitar, and I still can from Against Me, and I know a lot of the Against Me songs. I love that band, and you know, these days it's all changed quite a bit. But the one thing that I think defines the actual war, the culture war, is those who read beyond the headlines and those who don't. That's it. There's really good examples of this if you go online, and you can actually see it. So I'm actually interested in maybe hiring a researcher to start tracking this as a data point, to go to the subreddits of prominent progressive YouTube personalities and read the comments, and then actually mark them for like who read beyond the headline and who didn't, and then go to conservative ones and do it. Because what I've noticed recently is that as I've been browsing the subreddits of several prominent progressive YouTubers, they don't actually read the articles. They'll comment on the headlines. And while it's true for most people, when I go to conservative, sites, not so much. And this is also exemplified in left-wing memes about conservatives. So there was one that I saw on Reddit where they were mocking the conservative subreddit, because the conservative subreddit made a point about not allowing billionaires the ability to manipulate and control our elections and big tech and things like that. And they were mocking conservatives as if the conservatives were the ones who did it to themselves. And it's like, I don't understand. If you actually read what they're talking about, they're agreeing with you. Like, you've convinced them. Or do you not agree with them anymore? The issue was the caricature of the conservative from the headline does not accurately represent the real world. And that's true for libertarians, be it left or right or centrists or whatever. And so what I found is, why is it that the people who would follow you, James, or would watch this show are more likely to be informed? Is it because of this show? No, I don't think so. It's because of the nature of the individuals who would watch this show.
Yeah, I agree.
The people who go and turn on CNN and hear Wolf Blitzer say, a bunch of white supremacists stormed the Capitol, they go, wow, and they walk away. And then you have the headline that appears on Twitter and it says, far-right white supremacists storm, Let's do a better example. You'll turn on CNN and they'll say, the white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, their leader was arrested. And they'll go, whoa. Yeah. Then you'll see the headline, white supremacist leader of Proud Boys arrested. And people will see the headline and go, wow. And then people who are more inclined to watch shows like this will say, okay, click it and see a picture of a black man as the leader of the Proud Boys and go, wait, what? Something doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, something doesn't.
And that's like the red pill moment.
No, that's exactly right.
You actually start reading the news.
That's red pill level 1 right there.
Yeah.
That's where you see like the news, the headline especially, is lying to you, right? And then you start finding the buried leads, and then you start finding the inconsistencies in the stories. You start noticing, that the reporting doesn't match reality, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. And what it's all been framed up to be is like, now you're a conservative,
right?
Because you've read. Right, but you're not a conservative. You're actually somebody who engages with information like fully, or at least more than almost zero.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.